Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again. This is Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Fans First Sports Network, here to bring you all the action here on the Duval Dive. Welcome in Duval Devout. A very tough day, of course. The biggest story so far. We're going to talk about it plenty with the rest of free agency as we go through all the hard truths upcoming. Keep in mind, folks, we had this episode up and ready to go to have hard conversations about free agency. And then we get news dropped by Adam Schefter per a source that Christian Kirk was released by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Going to talk about that plenty, as well as other free agency pieces of impact going on. One thing I did want to touch on quickly, if you haven't checked it out yet, check out my solo short episode, not a short per se, but a short episode talking about why I feel that a first overall pick of Abdul Carter by the Titans hurts the Jacksonville Jaguars. Make sure you check that out. And a lot of you are petty out there. I saw in the comments, I'd rather them get Carter than hit on Ward. I mean, I get it, but good gravy. I'm trying to make your team better, not your other team worse. And a lot of y'all weren't having it, but I celebrate the interaction, and I did have fun with it. And listen, I'm not doing this show by myself. I wasn't ever prepared to do this show by myself. I am here to bring, of course, the card-carrying member of the Duval Devout that helps me show this off every week and beyond during the season. My man, Travis D. Holmes, Big Cat Country, my personal champion in the building. I'm stuttering because I know I'm going to be taking away some time from the main topic, but I have to lead in with this, because I saw you responding there on YouTube, on the Duval Dive YouTube channel, to people being petty about I'd rather them miss on Cam Ward and all that other stuff. But are you that petty? Did you feel the petty in the comments?
Oh, I felt the petty, absolutely. And I understand you being petty when it's related to the Tennessee Titans. You ain't got to get petty if you stay petty. I understand it. So no. Jacksonville, if you want to be petty to the Tennessee Titans, absolutely stay that way. Keep the hate in your heart. Hate. I understand it.
How'd you say it? You don't have to get petty if you stay petty. That sounds like the Hulk. I'm always angry. Instead of green, it's teal. I'm always petty. Okay.
Teal is just another color of green, baby. Let's go.
There you go. See, we needed to start you out with some laughs, especially with the thumbnail being from It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Listen, and I'll go out to it. I voiced it, retweeting the great Demetrius out there who covers the Jags on a regular basis. Florida Times Union, right?
Harvey, Jacksonville, Jacksonville.com. Yep.
Jacksonville.com. Excuse me. That's his old spot. Yeah, but Demetrius Harvey, and eventually it was joined by Jamal St. Cyr and many others, I think yourself included, that we don't enjoy seeing Christian Kirk go. And listen, he was my first NFL locker room interview that was recorded. Technically, it was Foye Oluokun, but then let's just say technical difficulties prevented that from actually airing, which were not his fault for sure. But Christian Kirk was the first released NFL interview in a locker room that I had with an NFL player, and grace does not begin to describe. It makes sense that you would say grace describing a wide receiver, but it has nothing to do with his physical prowess. This guy was a leader in the locker room. This guy was a fine human being, and I don't give a damn where he goes. I hope he has success, and the small part of me thinks that this is hopes, I should say, not thinks. This is a contract restructuring where eventually he will be back in teal and black. So,
and I've said it for years. I've shown my bias in this way because he was my first non-recorded. He was my first. Oh yeah, not on the record. Right. The first time I went to the stadium, we talked about this on the drive back home. We drove down together, and no, it was a 15-minute conversation off the record, just to the side in the locker room after a loss. And I'm just like, hey man, it was a dope conversation. He's the first person in the locker room to learn my name. And every time I see you say my name out loud across the field, whatever it is, like that, I always enjoy speaking to Christian. I hope he lands on his feet wherever he goes. And I'm always going to be a fan of his, and I'm always going to wish him the best.
So with that in mind, an honor, joy, and privilege, and road trip, we'll give Christian a bell. Props to you, Christian Kirk. Anyway, so Robert, in true Robert comment warrior fashion, out the gate 30 minutes before the damn show starts. Guess Kirk didn't want to pay Cup on Washington, or Washington tape looked that good. I'm not there yet. And General, by the way, jumping in, he has Pat Network there, which I respect, but also we know him mostly for touring the AFC South, of course. Shouts to players that are nice to people. And it wasn't just nice. The guy is, it's something different, man. Like, man, listen, if he didn't give a damn about what he thought about what I was doing when I told him it was my first interview and he congratulated me, then he deserves an Oscar. That's all I'm saying. But
no, it's nice. It's personable. It goes out of the way to make sure they treat you like people. They treat you like equals. This is different. Yeah. And when you witness different, you appreciate and you respect different. That's all.
But and going back to Robert's point, I don't think this was just about Kirk not wanting I
agree.
A pay cut or Parker Washington or any of that. Actually, for my money, and I've said it on this show weeks back, I think Parker Washington is just as, if not more, expendable than Christian Kirk by any stretch of the imagination. But and here, I hinted this, by the way. Here come more bells. You could check out both me. Did you drop the article for Big Cat Country on Christian Kirk?
Oh, for Christian Kirk? No. Actually, I wasn't the one who dropped it. Someone else got to it before I got to it. They were ready to write this one, so no.
There you go.
The article is out on bigcatcountry.com. But this was
for Sports Network, where I actually dropped it. There you go. So dual bell. We had a lot to say about it, but what I mentioned was the injury history. I think has most of it to do with it. Wouldn't you say that's a big factor, Travis?
I would say the injury history has something to do with it. Yes, but I won't say it has everything to do with it. Sure. The biggest thing I felt that it had to do with, and I've been mentioning this since October of last season. I mean, the tweets are out there. I tried to give myself, but I won't call it a victory lap because it's not a celebration, but the pat on the back to say, hey, we knew this was coming. I was hoping he was going to stay in Duval County based on the relationships he's had, with the based on the relationships he's had even with the incoming staff and everything else. But we also knew it was going to be hard to make it work because just looking at the stats, Brian Thomas Jr. was 82nd in the league in routes ran from the slot, and he still has 7 slot touchdowns. He was 4th in the league.
Somebody's been watching Dan Griffith's Twitter. I saw that
dang well I have. Dang well I've been. And Dan Griffiths, for you guys who don't know, he was on the show, friend of the pod. He was on the pod like 3 weeks ago. Action Sports Jags. He's doing some great things over there, so definitely check him out. And he released this gorgeous, this is the damage that Brian Thomas Jr. was able to do from the slot last year while being 82nd in the league in routes run from the slot. And Christian Kirk, unfortunately, ran 81% of his routes from the slot. Well, guess what? If you're only able to use Christian primarily in the slot, and BTJ is doing his most damage in the slot, but he's kind of delegated to being an outside receiver because of the limitations of the rest of your receivers, you're going to have a decision to make. That's basically how I felt that this came down to. Like, they would have wanted Christian back for like pennies on a dollar, or he can just go somewhere else where he'd probably be more appreciated financially and kind of keep this thing going. So I fully understand from all sides. It's just business.
And I'll say this, in the unlikely event he's not getting picked up, I would not be shocked to see him return to Jacksonville on a lower dime. Granted, I don't know what that deal looks like. He turns 29 in November, so I don't think he's still kind of got prime years. He's not truly washed yet, unless they see something we don't in his recovery process with the injuries he has suffered. I mean, playing 13 games in the past 2 years isn't great, but too many people, I think, remember also his career year, his first year as a Jag, 1,108 yards, for goodness sake. I mean, who can front on that? By the way, in a sophomore, Trevor, that was still maligned and thought to be a bust thanks to Urban Meyer's patronage, right? So,
and he still led the league in his route win percentage. Like, he was still top of the league, top 5, I should say, in the league, and his ability to get open. So the fact of the matter is, Christian Kirk does have value in this league. Let's not pretend that that's not the case. This truly just came down to this offense running through Brian Thomas Jr. which is exactly what Liam Cohen said when he was hired. This offense, Brian Thomas Jr. will be the engine of the offense. And unfortunately, that means he'll need to move around and be able to go to the slot ever so often, 50-50. A lot like they used to use, Cooper Kupp. In the Rams offense. Like, he needs to be a movable chess piece. And unfortunately, Christian Kirk will be in that spot and kind of be in the way in that.
I feel like the next closest thing might be Marvin Jones Jr. lately.
The next closest thing to what?
To the way they're kind of trying to use BTJ and like.
Oh no, we don't have an example because they have not been.
Please examine my wording. The closest thing. This is
closest thing.
Yeah,
we've not had a forward-thinking offense since Tom Coughlin's days, man. This is not like we when you're talking comparisons. I don't even know who to compare that to because we haven't had someone.
You haven't had. No, I'll agree with that.
He's that versatile. Yeah.
Sure. I think Zenith lands the point here in the comments. Sometimes you don't get all the money at the end of your contract if you are hurt. Facts of the case. I can't argue with that. JA6 jumps in completely on board with you and slot BTJ. I mean, how many touchdowns did you get from the slot? Quite a few. Just off the top, I don't have the stats on it like you were.
How many touchdowns did Brian Thomas Jr. have from the slot?
Score from the slot, yeah.
7.
Okay. See,
7
touchdowns
you,
or if DG were on the show, you'd have the stat. I didn't have it on the top of my head. I just watched enough of the film to know the dude's done it a lot. So
first in the league, 7 from the slot.
Oh, I forgot it was first in the league. That's tight. Anyways, that being said, there's other speculation happening with the more than $10 million in cap savings. Thanks to this move, which let's be honest was the lion's share of the reason. You don't pay $24 million to a cat that can't help the club because he's in the tub. It's a thing that it is. It's not fair, but it's the facts of the case. 2 names I've seen floated out, and I'll give Demetrius Harvey credit on Twitter for getting my mind rolling in the appropriate direction. Chris Godwin and Cooper Kupp, both getting floated now as potential targets for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Funny enough, he just so very wisely happened to pick 2 guys that have history with one head coach, Liam Cohen. Travis, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, go.
Well, the Jaguars are reportedly at least having those discussions to try to figure out what's the route to take with the Cooper Kupp kind of situation. It's really going to come down to the money because they're not going to want to pay Cooper that amount of money. He hasn't been healthy since, I believe, his 3rd year in the league. As far as playing a full season, he's played multiple seasons where it's just 9 to 12 games, and he's a dog when he's playing. But realistically, you're just not going to pay him those costs. And I think even Edilla said it earlier this afternoon, that the Jaguars would be more interested in Cooper Kupp in free agency than they would be in trading him because of, again, the money matters, and that's the big sticking point right now as it stands. Chris Godwin seems to be the route to go. If he's not going to re-sign in Tampa Bay, then it's going to be Godwin, Cooper Kupp. Then we'll figure it out, basically.
Well, and I'll put it this way. Either guy looking for a big payday, you're not going to find it here in Jacksonville, I don't think. Regardless of the fact that they just got $10 million freed up, and I think the cap overall is going up a bit in the coming years. But here's the thing. And I when it comes to Cooper Kupp in particular, you mentioned the injury history. Honestly, that's a huge red flag, and you're very wise to point it out. Here's the other piece. In a world where he's splitting the attention with Puka Nacua, he's still struggling to finish seasons. That is what makes me concerned. And Chris Godwin, let's be honest, his last year was just kind of a freak injury in that Steeler game. I saw it. It's not something that's going to happen regularly, but for my money, it's all about his rehab. And I would say it should be conditional on a workout. If I see what I like, then we'll sign it. Sure. That's not uncommon. I don't expect an Allen Hainsworth type situation to make fun of another former Tennessee Titan, but the punch. Allen Hainsworth failed his physical with the Red Tails. Sorry, Commanders before they were the Commanders. For those who don't remember, right? So I say all the above to say I think Chris Godwin is the safer bet overall. Absolutely. If you go a direction, and if you can imagine Chris Godwin and BTJ, woo, that's kind of nutty. I'll throw that out.
But Cooper Kupp is a lot like Saquon Barkley. at receiver. And what I mean is someone who's had a boatload of injuries in the past few years. But if you are able to get them in because they're so rarely available, then you kind of feels like you kind of have to do it on the off chance they do have one of those healthy years. Because, oh boy, if it works when he's a top 5, top 7 receiver, that's kind of like, ooh, you got to you have to add that guy to the rest of your receiver group and kind of just figure it out. And if it don't work, it don't work, but it's not like you're going to miss the money, especially with the increase in the salary cap and everything else. So it's one of those high risk, I won't even say high risk, but definitely moderate risk, high reward kind of situations.
Yeah, I get where you're going there. And I think, and listen, you and I are both in the camp that those who started pounding the table for Ted McMillan to get drafted once they saw this news, no, that is not how you replace a Christian Kirk. It's not.
No,
sorry.
No, but you replace Christian Kirk by more Brian Thomas Jr., more of it. How much more? In the words of Kobe, more. That's how you replace him. And then you bring in, whether it's Chris Godwin, whether it's Cooper Kupp, you bring him in, and then you add a third guy that's on a rookie contract. So that whole room is overall balanced across as far as finances are concerned. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. But again, this wasn't supposed to be a Christian Kirk heavy show. And then the news happened. And you know what? The news be newsing sometimes.
Well, hey, listen, it's never a bad time to do a Christian Kirk heavy episode, Humpy Bumpies. What are we talking about? Anyways.
All right, that's fair.
Forget yourself. You forget yourself, Travis. What's up? No, I'm going crazy now, man. We do have other free agents to talk about, but I will quickly go to some other comments here because there's some that have jumped in. Sign Chris and draft Jaden Hickens. I don't think there'd be much argument there. Tiger Stripe Media jumps in. Hey, you got a fan over from the South Florida Tribune. All right, there you go. Good to have you in, Brian. See, Eric Chano will get him strong and healthy.
The Jaguars' new strength and conditioning coach signed from the Buffalo Bills.
I'll say this. That's like the second or third dude that's like asked us to talk about the strength and conditioning coach. I mean, we could put it on the list.
It's a fascinating conversation to have. I mean, it's not a whole show, but it's definitely a segment that we can talk about in the future because I think the opinions of Eric are so wildly volatile that it's kind of hard to figure out what happened in Buffalo. So yeah, that should be another show. But the gist of it being is either you think he's all world or you think he's not good at all, and there's no in between.
Well, there you go. I think what Travis just did there was known as a teaser here in the business. I like the sound of all that. Next up, Critty 3X. Did they say how much each team got with the new salary cap? They did. I just don't remember. Do you happen to know off the top?
I don't have it on top of my head, but we can get it for you.
Yeah, we'll get back to you, Critty. Next up is Duval Paul in the building. Yeah, I'm not sold on Ted. Good work. Get a guy in the later round. Yeah, we preached on that last week with Toriano coming in. Toriano does know ball, after all. So yeah, his mock draft dropping, of course, the past week. Make sure you check that out. But yeah, so with that, let's head to another free agent that you and I have to have the "it's not your fault" conversation about with the Duval Devout here. And I guess this is with me. He would have been at the top of the list, but Christian Kirk happened. I'm referring to Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram, buddy. Listen.
So just to answer the original question, the increase is going to be just under $24 million to $279 million. The salary cap, as far as that piece is concerned. So normally it's like 5%. The thing was like 10% or a little bit over 10%. So that's a pretty big bump.
I thought we were supposed to be, dealing with inflation. Damn. Anyway, that being said, Evan Ingram, and I'll set it up this way because you and Toriano and other places out there in the Jagosphere, amongst the Duval Devout, so to speak, are talking about the tight end spot. Yeah. I still don't understand why. And I get it. Farrell's on contract. We'll talk about him later. That's fine. This dude had career years when healthy with Trevor Lawrence. Brenton Strange is a great backup, I think, for him. I think that's a good 1-2 punch. Maybe Evan Ingram commands a lot of money. I think he's second or third amongst cap hits, second on cap hits. amongst the 2025 salary cap hits. He's number one now, actually, since Christian got cut, right?
For the Jaguars, yes.
Right. Why?
But why?
Why are we worried about?
It's not just about money, because if you're just saying, hey, well, why should Evan Ingram be traded because of money? Well, I mean, money matters, and money might not matter as much for the Jacksonville Jaguars today as far as this 2025 dollar value, but 2026 is coming. Yeah. And Trevor Lawrence's contract ain't going nowhere. Like, that money is going to hit next year, and you can roll over funds to the next year. So you start being financially sound today in the hopes that it's going to help you sign the best players tomorrow. So as far as Evan Ingram is concerned, if you're saying, hey, well, his value is here and his salary is here, so you should keep him on the roster, I actually don't disagree with that too much. If you can find a way to use Christian to use Evan Ingram like the Buccaneers used Cade Otton last year, I think you absolutely do that if you're Liam Cohen, because they're around the same size. I mean, it's like a 5 or 6 pound difference overall.
And keep in mind, last year, a lot of it for Ingram was injuries, right?
Well, I mean, it's not just injuries. Like, I don't want to I think that would be discounting Evan Ingram. I think at the end of all of it, it truly comes down to how do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the LA Rams, the Minnesota Vikings, all those Sean McVay-based systems, how do they use their tight ends? Period. Like the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell, they traded for TJ Hawkinson. That boy is probably a top 5, if not top 7 blocking tight end in the league, who just also happens to be a dang good pass receiving, guy. Josh Oliver, you recognize that name, Jacksonville Jaguar fans? He used to play for us. And then he actually had to go and remake himself when he went to Baltimore and to a blocking tight end who can also catch. And all of a sudden they bring him in. Does that sound familiar? That's the guy. That's the type of tight end they're looking for. Someone who can play 90% to 100% of the snaps. He doesn't need to be taken off the field. You could even make the same argument for Cade Otton. When he wasn't injured in this past season with Tampa Bay, he was playing 90 to 100% of the snaps because they would not take him off the field. He'd be that inline blocker. I watched every single snap of Cade Otton last year when he wasn't injured earlier today. And I'm sitting there like, I don't think Evan Ingram can do that. He's a willing blocker, but I personally don't think he can do that. But if they can get 70% of that out of him and he can still be a better receiving tight end, it may be worth it for them. And they'll just figure out what happens down the line. But from my perspective, I think Evan Ingram is going to stay on the roster today. Yeah, I don't know that he's going to be on the roster past the draft if they end up adding another tight end or adding a tight end in free agency or something like that. It just feels like one of those, we'll wait and see what other weapons we get scenarios.
If I'm a new regime, which Liam Cohen technically is, I'm floating that position and concentrating on numerous other needs that the Jags currently have, which interestingly enough is in the trenches and on defense. And I mentioned that specifically to this point, Zine, that jumps in. And I think this, you are straight up out on Ted McMillan, by the way, from Arizona. And I get that. This more goes to my kind of statement of it. I'm not, I ain't anti-Ted, but as much as I would prefer to address different positions with that first. Yes, this guy gets it. Yeah. And I think you're there.
I'm with him. Yeah. I'm with him. I'm not in on a receiver in the first round, period. I don't care if it's pick number 31 or pick number 5. I'm just not in on the receiver in the first round at all.
The only way you're in on a receiver in the first round is if that receiver happens to play the majority of his snaps at corner, like Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter.
Thanks. Call me biased, whatever. I don't care. That's it.
Bro, hey, listen. We've on this show I've talked about how that's a good idea. So check out that episode, by the way. That was a fun one. Duval Paul jumps in. Roll out Gabe Davis, Washington, and BTJ. We saw Cohen's offense put up a lot of points, even when everyone in Tampa was injured. Here's the thing. You mentioned Gabe Davis, and I know you have him.
We're going to get in Gabe Davis in the next episode. That's not.
We have another episode. I feel ways about Gabe Davis that are completely unfair because none of it's Gabe Davis's fault. And we're with that. Cali Jag can't change my mind on Gabe Davis. I appreciate that entirely.
I'm going to try.
Cali Jag, I will encourage you to check out the next episode, which we will post for tomorrow, and we'll leave it at that. Do we think Josh Reynolds makes the final roster? And does that change the receiver room much? Travis,
absolutely. The receiver room's going to change. There are certain rooms on this team that I don't think there's even a question in my mind if they're going to change. The only question is how much they're going to change. The receiver room's one of those rooms. Josh Reynolds was brought in, right? Well, wide receiver room, cornerback room, safety. You might even add a linebacker. We'll see how that goes. So again, we have another conversation to have on this next show. But nevertheless, the gist of it being is I don't know that Josh Reynolds makes the roster, but at the same time, he's going to have a fighting chance. We'll see what happens there. It's a new coaching staff. It's the new general manager, and he was brought in at the end of the season just to take a quick flyer, just to get a look at the guy. That's basically it.
Yeah, I'll get with that. Johnny Burney comes in with all this hype this offseason, predicting a 7-win season. I'll tell you what, Travis and I will get more into win predictions once we, see who they draft, maybe watch a camp or two. But by the same token, I'm not mad at that vibe. They still don't quite feel like they're going to make the playoffs, but we'll fight for it. That's a fine place to stand.
Let me see what they do on O-line, and then we'll talk.
We'll get to that here in the comments shortly, actually, too. Make Evan Ingram in a Dallas Clark role. It's 12 personnel, but 3 wide sets. Pretty interesting to think about what they did. I see the thought process. I don't know enough about Liam Cohen to know how much he wants that to happen. I'll leave it at that. I don't know.
I got no strong takes on that, but again, for that cost, that's the conversation.
Well, I listen. Dallas Clark was prominent in that day. He whooped the Jags' butt on a regular basis.
Well, we may as well just generally summarize this podcast and the next podcast that's going to be dropping tomorrow as you guys swear to you swear to everything that is holy in the world that you guys hate Trent Baalke, but no one wants to move off of Trent Baalke's picks or his free agent additions.
So you had to make it all real like that.
Well, I just got to say it very directly, because it's like, hey man, if you hated the general manager and the roster that he built, then why are we so resistant to moving off these guys? So like, we are now to a point where we can have the real conversation because they've effectively moved off of the Christian Kirk, signing, because that made things a little bit limited. All right, cool. We have to have that exact same conversation with a lot of these guys. I mean, we have a list of like 10 to 12 guys who they are very limited in what they can do. And that worked for Bill Belichick because he was a dang ingenious coach. Like, he was just one of those ones. And it still eventually caught up to him when he didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback. Let's be clear. Having limited guys in all these ways.
It caught up to him plenty when he didn't have it. You forget that Hall of Famer ended his career in New England, throwing an interception in a playoff game to the Tennessee Titans, by the way.
That's true. All I'm saying is having a boatload of limited guys means you can only do limited things as far as offense and defense, as far as how you line up, as far as what you're telling on yourself with alignments and things of that nature. So if you're done with Baalke, you got to be done with his players. And that means some good players, like legitimately good players, will not be in Jacksonville in 2025 because you don't want to pay them great funds. You don't want to pay them great free agent dollars if they're just giving you good results in a limited way on the field. So I'm here for it. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting, but rip the Band-Aid off and build this thing like you want it to be built, Liam and James.
Yeah. I mean, and it started with Christian Kirk getting cut. We're hurt by it.
That's the first thing, and we'll see what happens with Evan Ingram.
So yeah,
and the next guys on our list.
Tiger Stripe Media jumps in. Jags need some O-line. He must be new in town. We've been saying that for a minute, Brian.
In the worst way.
Let's see. Bubble Bass jumps in. I'm fine with Gabe Davis as he's a wide receiver 4. Wow.
Jeez. Better than Tim Jones. Right.
I don't know who we're firing, Cali Jag. That's fine. I'll skip past that.
Everybody.
I also think Evan Ingram power slot snaps would be interesting with Liam's scheme. I won't.
Facts. So if Ingram's on this roster, they're gonna use the mess out of him. Trust and believe that.
Use the mess. I like that. Shouts to Mick jumping in the comments there too. The end of that Green Bay game was wild because like 3 or 4 wide receivers went down. Yeah. What was it? It wasn't just wide receivers. Evan Ingram was already out too. By the way, it was Parker Washington. It was
Brenton Strange.
Was it? Yeah.
Brenton Strange.
Yeah. And did they have
Tim Jones at receiver on one side.
It was nuts. Yeah,
that was a mess.
And they still won the damn game almost. Tell Duval Paul got you preaching. Boy, you went crazy on the comments. Thank you, gentlemen. I ain't attached to these players. Go ahead and move anyone that isn't Trevor, BTJ, Josh Hines Allen, or Trayvon. Okay, that's the right attitude. That's what we're trying to tell you. This guy obviously doesn't think it's his fault, and we're good with that. JA6 jumps in facts. I agree with your take on moving from Bulky's guys. Let's breed competition between these guys and really push them to get better or not. Yes, 1,000,000,000%.
That's
yes.
That's it.
Well done.
That's the take.
That's the take. Get Metcalf and call it a day. Robert, I'm going to table that Metcalf conversation for the next pod, but I can guarantee you're not going to like my answer. Darby release when?
So Zenith, we will talk about this on tomorrow's pod. We already got it loaded up and we're ready to have that conversation. But Darby is one of the guys who we will discuss as far as maybe him having a spot on the roster, maybe not. It depends on how you feel about what this defense is going to become.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one too. I know we're running a little long, but there's one more guy we have to touch on. And that's Travis Etienne. Listen.
That's the fun one.
For as much as you and I have said certain things on this show, and
certain things.
Oh snap! I found that in the basement. Sorry. But for those that are listening to the pod, I just found my Mega 2024 Make Etienne Great Again graphic.
Yes, we had a whole parade and a whole movement going about Make Etienne Great.
Travis, that's right.
And Tank came in and stole the show. Ain't that something?
But yeah.
So yeah, but Travis Etienne, that's another guy that's going to make this a very curious conversation when Liam Cohen and James Gladstone get into that dark room at midnight on one day and look at the tape of Etienne. Are they going to feel like this is the guy we need? This is going to be our Bucky Irving, or are they going to feel like this is a guy who's really limited and he tells teams when he's on the field that they're not running the ball on first down, or he's not going to be able to fall forward when he's contacted? Which version of Etienne are they going to look at? Are they going to that's the big question. And I don't know how to feel about this one, because I do believe if they bring in a 3-down back in the draft or even in free agency, there's a conversation that needs to be had about, hey man, we might have to move off this guy because he's going to be on that 5th-year contract. We could leave him. We can leave it and just let it ride and then play his contract out and he'll just go elsewhere. Or we can get something for him resource-wise, because we know this team loves to gain these draft picks, very much like Les Snead and the Rams. That's what makes us start having these conversations of, are these guys going to be on the roster in week 1? And I don't know how to feel about Etienne just because of his pass blocking it's bad. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. It is bad. And if that's something that has been important to you as a head coach, we got a conversation to have.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Not that I'm not as low as you about his pass blocking. At least I wasn't his second year, aka what I would actually call his rookie year, because he missed his rookie year. But it didn't improve enough. That's the statement I'll make.
It got worse last year. No, I'm not going to mince words on this one. I watched every single snap of every single Jacksonville Jaguars running back in pass protection last year, and Dearness Johnson was the best one of the bunch, and that ain't saying a lot. All of them were bad.
It's funny you mentioned Dearness Johnson, because I think they draft the guy that will replace him late in the draft, second, probably third day, because of the hate that his institution gets. I'm calling my shot. I really think that RJ Harvey ends up a Jaguar on day 3 and could fill that Dearness Johnson spot. But the reason why I bring him up specifically is I think he's a guy that can hold on to the ball. I think he's a guy that catches the ball better than Tank Bigsby and can block well. Think about that. What was that maligned play that ended that Eagles game? What was it? The pass to Dearness Johnson that everybody was up in arms and out.
Oh, the wheel route that was drawn up for Christian Kirk. But then Kirk was hurt. So, Lord, that.
I feel like RJ Harvey would have had a better shot at that ball than Dearness Johnson. Just because Dearness Johnson has been in the league for as long as he has, he's an older guy. I mean, there's some more mileage on him, but I think RJ Harvey is a dude that could have made that play. All of the above to say, I don't know that they address Etienne now, but we're back to, and I'm gonna flash this comment real quick because it's nice. Callie Jag, Gladstone seems like a critical thinker that gives me optimism. Callie Jag, here's one of the pieces of critical thinking that Travis wants to have happen, because he said it himself using a different cliche, if you will. Bites of the apple. We just heard him this past combine talking about wanting more bites of the apple. We might even played a clip on this show last week. I'm not going to try to find it right now because it's 35 minutes into the show and I don't want to get it wrong. But he has said he wants more bites of the apple, and the more bites of the apple they get, the more of these positions and issues they can address.
I would love to disagree with you right now, but you've been saying everything so accurately and succinctly. Let's keep it going, man. Ooh, RJ, I believe
36 minutes, March 5th, 2025.
No, I actually agree with you that RJ Harvey is the profile of the guy that they would like to bring in. Like, he's a mid-round to late-round draft pick who's 24 plus years old, so he's going to have a more immediate return on investment. Someone who's basically more able to put up with the NFL game. Like that's the Rams drafting profile.
Yeah,
exactly, to endure it, right? He has that more grown man strength, we'll say.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, RJ Harvey is the guy who you can bring in and kind of give you immediate results. I think because of that, unless someone scoops him before the Jaguars get there, I think he will end up until next year.
Here's why that won't happen. And by the way, you could see my coverage of his combine performance on the blackandgoldbanneret.com. I don't get to shout that out much on this show, but think about it. Ollie Gordon gets all this hype. Bo Scadaboo, all just within his conference, by the way. I'm not even talking about Georgia guys and Ohio State guys, by the way, whom he recorded a faster 40 then, but nobody wants to talk about that. Daniel Jeremiah is trying to sell me Quentin Ewers, who's missing the broadside of the barn in his passing drills as one of the top performers in the combine, but doesn't even whisper. RJ Harvey is the fourth fastest 40 in the dang combine. But no, please tell me Daniel Jeremiah is an expert. No, thanks. I'll stick with my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes.
Well, can we all just get along?
Right?
Can't we all just get along? Like,
no, I get mad they steal your money, bro. Anyway. Hey, people like the rants, man. It's cool. So with all that being said, I feel like that overall movement of being hyped about other backs more than RJ Harvey because he played at UCF, I think that will put him in position to make him a prime pick for the Jags. He stays in the state, and he'll be a third-day draft pick. It'll be great.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you. But no matter how you look at this, I believe the Jaguars. Oh, and that's the part we haven't even talked about. Lord, I got to get into that in the next podcast. But I think the Jaguars are going to bring in like three DBs between the draft and free agency, cornerback and safety, like across the board.
A little inside baseball for the pod. Travis was trying to get a free agency section into this with three DBs in it. It wasn't going to happen.
I just need to point that out. Like, again, I've been looking at the Green Bay defense, and I'm just sitting there like, dude, between the draft and free agency, they are going to bring in like three guys, and I might be underselling this. It could be four, but it's to the point where I'm like, you might not recognize the vast majority of these guys if their name's not Tyson Campbell and Jarian Jones.
Right. Which, by the way, on this show, we are definitely fans of both Jarian Jones and a healthy Tyson Campbell. I don't think that's a question. We like Dewey too. Don't get it twisted. But for the most part, as far as major contributors, that's where we live. We knew that Darby and Savage were going to be fill-ins that are experience-based. Did not exceed them.
And experience-based in a man defense, which is not what they'll be playing now.
Right. That's a great point by you. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, we'll see a lot of movement there. We'll get into particulars of that next episode. There is one more we have to at least touch on. I'm going to make this kind of a 2-in-1 with the defensive front. First of all, with the way you and I have been pounding the table for Mason Graham at 5, assuming the Jags don't have a shot at Travis Hunter. And in your case, and I think I kind of agree with you, that Mason Graham is still the best pick for immediate results. if Travis Hunter's on the board. But Mason Graham being in a defensive tackle spot, I think is a good thing. And then also linebacker there too. There's another name in there we want to talk about as well in Devin Lloyd. Devon Hamilton and Devin Lloyd, I'm going to say it right up front. I think they need to move off Devon Hamilton outright. And Devin Lloyd, he's one of those where, like, I mean, sure, I wouldn't expect him to be the future, would you? You know?
Well, everybody seems to love Devin. Like, everybody loves Devin Lloyd or hates Devin Lloyd. There's no in between. Like, either he is the worst player ever to ever wear teal, or he is the best, and you guys just don't understand what you're looking at because the advanced data says this, and this. And I'm honestly right in between because I love the games that he's on it. He is so on it. The game when he is seeing it and you can see that he's reading his keys and he is moving like a freaking missile. But the games when he is off and you can tell that he's not running through the blocks, like he's running around blocks and opening up holes, or he's busting coverages in the passing game or missing tackles in the open field. Those games, his rough games are really rough and his incredible games are really dang good. And there's no in between, and that volatility may not work well with certain coaching staffs. But I also want to make sure I'm clear in giving him some grace because the defensive front wasn't the greatest in 2024.
The defensive middle, particularly, right?
The interior of the defensive front. So if your job is to hit this gap and read the opposite of what this defensive lineman is doing, and this dude is just getting backed up into your lap, the defensive tackle is, then what can you do as the linebacker? So I want to be clear in saying it's not just one or the other. If they had better defensive tackle play, I probably would feel better about Devin Lloyd, and because of that, he's probably going to be on the roster because they at least they owe him that. I feel like they would probably read that the same way. But as far as
I think the scheme change helps him too.
Yeah. But as far as Devon Hamilton, that's a different one. And I know you may want to move off of it soon, but he's kind of in that Gabe Davis territory.
Yeah, I think he's anchored down. I'm with you.
Well, not anchored down in that way. What I mean by I think he's in that territory of maybe even Evan Ingram territory. Let's say it's closer to that, where he's going to be on the roster until they have another guy who's able to do better. We haven't seen enough from Jordan Jefferson to say he's going to be able to take over that role from Devon Hamilton to date. We don't have enough evidence to kind of go off that. Mason Graham is not he doesn't have the type of profile to kind of take over that role because Devon Hamilton is your only true nose tackle option. Like real nose tackle, able to kind of eat up those double teams and take kind of 320, 330 pound range guy. They don't have that guy other than maybe Jordan Jefferson. So if that's somebody they get in the draft or in free agency, like again, that Kenneth Grant, you have there's a few guys like that, those bigger guys, maybe Deontay Walker, Kentucky. There's a few guys like that, true nose tackles, true guys who can play that 0-1 technique. Then we're having a different conversation. But outside of that, I don't know that they'll get rid of D. Hamilton until they have another guy in the wing to kind of show you. Make sense?
Yeah, no, you make a lot of great points. I would also see that and raise you. I don't like them going to a 3-man front anyway, because if you go to a 3-man front, that tells me you're having to throw in more linebackers. And I would make the argument that if in 2023, that the least deep part of the room on defense was the DBs. Now, because of all the dudes they shipped out.
Whether it's a 3-man front or a 4-man front, my underlying point is the body type. It's the fact that you need a guy who can plug the middle to kind of stop the run, to help them stop the run. Well,
and I'm saying over and above that body type, but you're right, they ain't got it. What I'm trying to tell you is this reveals two issues. A, if you go to that, you're not linebacker deep. And B, you ain't got the people to do it anyway, right? That, like, go back to the great Steeler defenses, under late Cowher, early Tomlin, that beat, especially the team that beat Arizona and Seattle in the Super Bowl, right?
I got you.
They had Hampton and Hoke in the middle for an extended period of time. They also had amazing linebackers, but without Hampton and Hoke, it ain't a thing, right? And the Jags are still, to this day, we've talked about this, are still not performing as they did with Faloransu Fatukasi on the roster.
People hate that we like him so much. We can always bring him up, but then they were good at stopping the run when he was healthy, man.
But okay, listen, no one's saying you have to like it. I'm asking you how I'm optimistic beyond him, and you can't give me that, can you? So
I mean, you're not wrong, but again, if people want to go back to those old John Henderson days, another guy who was 335, 340. I'm saying they had two of them. That's my overall point. If you're going, it doesn't have to be a three down lineman situation. Just to have those big guys that be in the middle, push the pocket back, take those double teams, and let your ends eat. That's kind of where I'm at with the Hamilton situation, especially for the money that he's making. If you get a rookie that comes in, I don't know that he's on the roster in week 1.
Wow. And you know what? I'm kind of inclined to agree with you on that. Yeah, no, his price tag is, of course, the bigger issue. And yes, I agree with you that his body type has him anchored there at the moment. But never underestimate the power of training camp, because that's how we got Roy Robertson Harris out the door eventually, where he ended up being more productive, ironically, in Seattle. Let's go to some other comments here before we wrap up.
My man.
Actually, people are all about this Harvey life right here. I wasn't ready for that. Duval Paul, love RJ Harvey. Harvey is a dog. From Robert. If you're getting love from Robert, you're good to go. Listen.
Yeah, I think RJ Harvey sold all of Duval. Okay.
I mean, listen, I'm all about double dipping between this and the black and gold banneret. So there you go. The bell even went crazy when I mentioned that. J6, I think it would be smart to keep ETN around, but add to the running back room. Again, another RJ Harvey positive comment. Robert supporting my dissing Daniel Jeremiah, somebody with eyes. RJ Harvey has sick vision. I agree. Especially when they're stacking the box and he's still putting up damn near 1,600 yards in the season. I
don't know if I feel that way. I feel like the cornerback class is actually pretty deep. Folks have said this often, but I think that may deserve its own, if not podcast, its own segment in and of itself. But as a DB guy, I actually like this DB class.
I think fit is a big factor there too. I'm with you. Let's see. Mentioning oh my gosh, Devin Lloyd. I throw shade at him just because of that bulky draft / free agency. I mean, a lot of people have taken the message we've been trying to present tonight, so we'll leave it at that. Travis dominated small schools, and he was getting work at the bowl. He doesn't want to be drafted by Jags. Okay.
That's what they said about Ramsey, but he worked out fine for a time at least.
We're both Mason Graham guys anyway. Aluakun, Lloyd, and Muma all in the same year. I mean, I don't know where he's trying to take me with that, but yeah.
Nah, that's Devin Lloyd. He's saying all those linebackers. You give Aluakun a contract, and then you draft Muma and you draft Devin Lloyd, and you still are talking about maybe getting a linebacker right now. That's a lot.
Listen, I've had my conversations about Chad Muma, and we'll leave it at that. I would get Graham over Hunter. Yeah, Robert's all in on that. Jefferson can take Ham's job in camp.
I mean, he can. It's possible.
It's on the board. I'll say that. Mick thinks I need a hug. Grant and Graham double dip like the Rams.
I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm just like, oh man, that would be great, but also, dang, that would be rough. Like it would be both. If they really grab both of them, and then they would have to get rid of D Hamilton, and then you'd be rotating someone between Eric Armstead and Mason Graham, and Mason Smith. Like that feels like a lot to go 2 defensive linemen in the draft, and probably the first 2 rounds of the draft. That's
that high. I would even have questions about. I'll be honest. We'll leave that at that. Wait, free agency is still the thing. You never know. It's all about Graham. We get it. Jags about to make some noise. Said Green getting excited by the front office moves. And then, of course, Prime said on a pod that he should turn down the Jags. Robert, I hear you, but I would also remind you that Prime knows how to play the games, and it's lying season.
Man, I'm like, why you listening to Prime? You know, doggone what that man be talking. That man gonna one thing he gonna do is be in the media. Come on, man.
I mean, he's talking about Prime Time's podcast, and shouts to Coach Prime. I respect him.
We calling the man Prime Time. That's literally all you need to know. Prime Time.
I'm going to quote him by saying how you should probably feel about when he says this sort of stuff in pods. Ain't nobody care. Who cares?
Man, that man gonna go wherever he drafted. Man, this is not an Eli Manning situation, man. We are fine. This is fine.
So yeah, but that'll do it. Listen, guys, thank you for jumping in. Great comments. Claps, guys. Intelligence. I'm not just doing this because of all the RJ Harvey love, which, by the way, black and gold banneret. Please check out the Combine profile and BJ Adams, Kobe Hudson as well. Actually, BJ Adams was done by Jeff Sharon. I also did Mac McWilliams as well there too, blackandgoldbanneret.com for you getting all your UCF player action. 2 DBs in there, by the way. That who knows? Maybe Mac McWilliams becomes a UDFA or a third-day draft pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He performed well at the Combine. We'll leave it at that. Travis, tell the world.
You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes, as it says right here, whether it's Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and I think my MySpace is still out there playing music for all you guys and Tom. So yeah, go and check it out. Also, BigCatCountry.com. We have our staff roundtable coming up. Should be Friday. Where we're going to give you all of our predictions, that kind of what we're hearing, musings, maybe our top 3 free agents that we believe will land in Jacksonville. So take a look out for that and any breaking news that you have. Obviously, BigCatCountry.com. Like it, favorite it. If you're listening to our podcast right now on YouTube or on your favorite podcatcher, please rate and review us, subscribe, click the like button, man. Help a brother out. Do it while it's free. How about that? What about you, sir? Where can you be found?
My God. I was trying to conclude the Monday pod as smoothly as that. There is no way I landed the plane that damn well. Of course, I am Kyle Nash. The game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, all of the above there. At the SOTG, as well as Facebook as the Student of the Game. Check out my writings with the Fans First Sports Network. I was going to write something Orlando Magic, but I couldn't because Christian Kirk got cut. That's okay. Tomorrow, March 6th, I'll be at the Kia Center covering them, battling the Bulls. Who knows? Maybe I'll win a home game here sometimes. 4 straight losses. Good golly, Miss Molly. Anyways, that being said, check out my work as well with the Black and Gold Banneret, as mentioned. Of course, you're here at the Duval Dive podcast, but make sure you hit up the Night Shift podcast where I talk all things UCF and honor, joy, and privilege. Until next time, everybody, thank you for jumping in. Good comments, good banter, and most importantly, I have numerous witnesses that Travis D. Holmes said I was right about something. So, until next time, everybody. Class. Dismiss. Lies. You cold